I want to correct something that I said in a video earlier today about Donald Trump's military action in Venezuela, because I called that action illegal in a video earlier, and that wasn't entirely correct. We can talk about a perspective of international law, about which I am not an expert, but I knew after I said it, and as I was posting the video, I was like, that's not quite right. I've seen comment after comment after comment today, a lot of them directed at my friend knitting cult lady, or referencing her like kind of in a passive aggressive way, saying, well, I guess the military will carry out Donald Trump's illegal orders. I guess they are willing to violate the law for him. And I'm not a military expert, but I've seen folks who are on Blue Sky immediately saying like, hey y'all, this action is like not really illegal. These are powers that we gave to the president after 9/11. It's the AUMF, the authorized use of military force, that allows the president to do things like this. Also, like, low-key, remember that Donald Trump already bombed Iran and Nigeria? Like, he's already carried out actions that are not dissimilar to this multiple times in the last year. And honestly, all of y'all who think you got a gotcha on knitting cult lady and that you know more than a former military intelligence officer, I have not seen her be inconsistent in her position on Donald Trump and the military's willingness or lack thereof to carry out illegal orders. In fact, in preparation for making this video, I went and looked up what she had to say on this issue specifically.
Things. Militarily, potentially legal, at least as far as the military understood, because with the authorized use of military force, AUMF, that Congress granted Bush after 9/11, every president has used that. This is kind of one of the things I was talking about back during the election when I said the president of America has a lot of unilateral power for military violence abroad, right? We, the people, gave that to him and have not taken it back. Maybe something we need to address.
I was a newlywed when 9/11 happened, the beginning of the 24-hour news cycle, the beginning of us handing over so much power to the office of the president, to the executive, in the name of like protecting us against terrorists. Remember when I made a video earlier this morning where I was like, hey, when we're panicking, we make bad decisions. When we are in a heightened emotional state, the regime or the federal government can manipulate our emotions in order to extract things out of us, in order to expand their power, in order to trample our rights. And I feel like in the post 9/11 world, what happened was that we were all really panicky, right? They were able to manipulate our emotions really successfully to take a lot of power and give it to the president. And one of those was the authorization for the use of military force in 2001. Bush, Obama, Biden, and Trump have all used the AUMF, which initially was passed September 18th, 2001. Again, heightened emotional state after September 11th. Well, like within 2 weeks, which is like, well, bam, here, George, here's all of this power for you. It granted the president the authority to use all necessary and appropriate force against those whom the president determined to have planned, authorized, committed, or aided the September 11th attacks. The AUMF granted tremendous power to the office of the president, not only to decide who to target, but also what specific actions to take. Right, so we're seeing an awful lot of folks, including members of Congress, who are saying Donald Trump doesn't have the right to declare war on Venezuela. No, he doesn't. But the AUMF is a statutory force authorization. It doesn't allow the president to declare war, but it does allow him to engage in these kinds of military operations. And so the argument is being made that this was entirely legal, that Donald Trump did have a right to authorize this action. And so members of the military were not engaged in illegal actions. Now, again, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a military expert at all, but I did read up a little bit on this. And there have been multiple instances of United States presidents citing the AUMF as justifications for actions that the courts later determined were not legal. Again, it wasn't just George Bush who used the AUMF to justify all kinds of military operations. Donald Trump did during his first term, 2019, I think. He used it as the justification for attacking and occupying Kurdish-controlled Syrian oil fields. But Obama also used it, and so did Joe Biden. I mean, the Obama administration was repeatedly criticized for their actions exceeding the authority granted in the AUMF. And gosh, when Joe Biden was using it as a justification to bomb Somalia, then Senator Marco Rubio, who was the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said, "I don't think the president needs a law passed by Congress in order to target terrorists who are posing a threat to the United States, no matter where they are in the world." Wonder what all those Democratic senators who voted to confirm Marco Rubio are thinking now. By the way, we do know that Marco Rubio has his sights on Cuba next, right? And just this past year, Donald Trump used the AUMF as the reason he was empowered to carry out these airstrikes against these Venezuelan boats, fishing or otherwise. It's not surprising that his regime would use this as a legal justification for what happened last night. Again, just because they're claiming they have the legal authority to do this, we'll see how this all plays out. And I hear there are people who are saying this was entirely illegal from the perspective of our laws, but also international law. But then there's also people saying, well, we've given this power to the president. We've let the office of the president have this power for a quarter century, and we've done nothing to rein it in. In fact, during the Biden years, General Mark Milley said that the AUMF was critical for us and we had to keep it on the books. We had to keep it in operation. That power needed to stay with the president. I guess they didn't think that Donald Trump would get back in office. They maybe should have worked harder to get justice and to prevent that scenario, to prevent the reality that we're living in now. And again, whether or not these actions are entirely legal, whether or not they are moral, like, are those really the point of what I'm seeing people comment online when they're saying, like, now we know that the military will carry out illegal orders. There was a legal justification. We've given the president an awful lot of power. I know that SCOTUS over the last couple of years has given the office of the president even more, and that they're hell-bent on making Donald Trump into a king, into a monarch, despite John Roberts saying a couple of days ago that the Constitution is intact. Yeah, okay. What's driving your rulings, Roberts, is your fringe unitary executive theory and not legal precedent, not the Constitution itself. But sure, you try and tell us that it's intact and Donald Trump hasn't been granted outrageous amounts of power, but not all of that is recent. Some of that goes back a quarter century. And remember, the power lies with us, the people. We have been manipulated by those in government to extend more and more and more of our power to the office of the president. We were freaking out so hard after 9/11 that we decided to hand George Bush the power to not only identify and decide who he wants to strike, but then what kind of action to take, what kind of military operation to engage in. And then we just allowed that power to just be passed on to president after president after president. And we didn't do anything to take it back. So I'm not saying that this is the fault of us, the American people, but I am saying that we, on many levels, still are a nation of, by, and for the people, because ultimately the power resides collectively with us. And a lot of us have been very complacent. I know that we're really maxed out. A lot of us don't have the bandwidth and the energy to focus on what's happening in government, to be civically involved, but it is our obligation, it is our duty as American citizens to take our role as citizens of this country, as a country run by the people. We've not really taken that very seriously. And the oligarchy has exploited that. Those who want to advance their authoritarian agendas, those who want to make the president into a king, they have exploited that. And gosh, this is a moment for us, the people, to wake the fuck up and realize how much we have just handed over to those in power who are using our shares of power irresponsibly and immorally. So it's not, see, Daniela, we told you that the military was going to do whatever Donald Trump wanted and they would carry out all of his illegal orders. No, it's why have we allowed this to be a legal power that the president has? And do we want to live in an America where the president has this kind of power? A weak, frail president who is willing to take these extreme actions because he knows he is politically deeply unpopular. He's incredibly vulnerable. He does not have the support of the people. So operating from a position of weakness, trying to make it look like he's strong because we've given him all of this power, our power. I'm not going to lie, it's a dangerous and concerning moment in our history when a profoundly fragile man has access to so much legal power. So what is it that we want to do about it? What is our next move? What is the move of us, the American people, to reclaim the power we have wrongly loaned out?